It's funny how life circles back sometimes, isn't it? How the very person who shattered your world into a million jagged pieces can reappear years later, hat in hand, expecting you to pick up those shards and try to piece him back together. He chose his path, paved with deceit and shiny, temporary things. I chose mine, paved with tears, then sweat, and finally, solid ground built by my own 2 hands. His path led him right back to a door he slammed shut years ago, only to find it beautifully restored, reinforced, and firmly, satisfyingly, closed to him. My happiness wasn't a weapon I forged for revenge, but seeing his reflection in its shine felt like the most perfect kind of justice. 5 years. It feels like both a lifetime and the blink of an eye. 5 years ago, my universe revolved around Mark Evans. We weren't just dating, we were building. We lived in a cozy, slightly overpriced apartment in Austin, Texas, overlooking a sliver of downtown. We had plans. Detailed, color-coded plans involving savings accounts, mortgage pre-approvals, and whispered names for hypothetical future children. Mark worked as a senior project manager at a booming tech firm, Innovate Solutions. I was a freelance graphic designer, finally hitting my stride, landing bigger clients. Our life felt like a blueprint slowly, surely, turning into reality. We talked about everything, or so I thought. Money, ambitions, fears, the slightly annoying habits we tolerated in each other. His tendency to leave socks beside the hamper, my habit of singing off-key in the shower. It felt real, stable, destined. We were saving aggressively, aiming for a down payment on a small house in the Zilker neighborhood, maybe around $80,000 saved over the next 2 years. We even had a joint account for shared expenses and future goals, holding about $15,000 at the time. He started mentioning Jessica Thorne more often about 6 months before it all imploded. Jess helped troubleshoot the server issue, or Jessica pulled an all-nighter with the team to meet the deadline, or had lunch with Jess today. She's really sharp. Innocent enough, I thought. Workplace camaraderie. She was a newer hire, a software engineer on one of his key projects. He described her as driven, ambitious, maybe a little ruthless in a corporate sense. I pictured someone sharp-edged and professional. I didn't picture her laughing with Mark over intimate dinners I wasn't invited to, or tangled in the sheets of hotel rooms booked on the company card during business trips. The discovery wasn't dramatic like in the movies. There was no lipstick on his collar, no suspicious credit card bills slipped under the door. It was mundane, almost insulting in its banality. He left his work laptop open one evening while he took a long shower. A notification pinged. A message on the company's internal chat system. From Jessica. The preview was just a string of heart emojis. My own heart stuttered. Curiosity, cold and sharp, pierced through me. It felt wrong, invasive. But the seed of doubt, perhaps planted subconsciously by the increased frequency of her name in his conversations, bloomed instantly. With trembling hands, I clicked. It wasn't just hearts. It was a conversation thread, stretching back months, inside jokes, flirtatious banter, complaining about me, my work hours, my friends, my perceived lack of spontaneity, and then the explicit confirmation, details about hotel rendezvous, coded language about meetings that weren't about work, plans for a future that clearly didn't include me. Can't wait until we don't have to hide. One message from Mark read. Soon, she'd replied, followed by more hearts. The water shut off in the bathroom. I felt frozen, the laptop screen burning images into my brain. He walked out, his towel around his waist, humming. He stopped when he saw my face, saw the open laptop, saw the color drain from my world. The confrontation was a blur of choked words, tears, and pathetic justifications. He tried to minimize it. It didn't mean anything. It was just physical. We were stressed at work. Lies, each one twisting the knife deeper. He'd been leading a double life, using our shared dreams as a smokescreen. When I brought up Jessica, his defensiveness crumbled into a sort of defiant admission. Yes, it was her. Yes, it was serious. He claimed he hadn't known how to tell me. I told him to get out, that night. He packed a bag, his face a mixture of shock and something that looked disturbingly like relief. He didn't fight much. He just left, leaving the ruins of our life scattered around me in that too-quiet apartment. The next day, I checked our joint savings account. The $15,000 was gone, transferred out the morning before. He'd known. He'd planned. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was calculated. Financial theft. I considered legal action, suing him in small claims court, but the emotional cost felt too high. I just wanted him gone, out of my life, even if it meant losing the money. It felt like the price of escaping a burning building. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. Grief is a physical entity. It sits on your chest, steals your breath. It makes food taste like ash. Friends rallied. My best friend Maya practically moved in, fielding my sobbing calls, forcing me to eat, reminding me to shower. My parents offered support, though the pity in their eyes was hard to bear. I threw myself into work, using late nights and complex design projects as anesthesia. I saw a therapist, Dr. Lee, who patiently helped me unravel the tangled mess of anger, hurt, and shattered self-esteem. She helped me see that his betrayal was about his weakness, his lack of character, not my lack of worth. About 3 months after the split, I heard through the grapevine, the cruel, efficient grapevine of mutual acquaintances, that Mark and Jessica were officially a couple, living together. Apparently, he'd moved straight from our apartment into hers. Another 6 months later, an engagement announcement popped up on social media. A blindingly large diamond ring on Jessica's finger, the two of them beaming, captioned, "She said yes, not our soulmates, nor new beginnings." It felt like a physical blow. Seeing them flaunt their happiness, built on the wreckage of mine, I was excruciating. I deactivated my social media accounts for a while, needing distance from the curated perfection that felt like a personal insult. Their wedding took place a year after our breakup. A lavish affair, judging by the photos Maya reluctantly showed me, only because I insisted, needing to face the reality. Held at a fancy downtown hotel, bridesmaids in expensive dresses, Mark looking smug in his tuxedo. Jessica looked triumphant. I allowed myself one night of pure, unadulterated misery, cheap wine, sad movies, copious tears. Then, the next morning, I woke up, showered, and decided that was enough. Enough mourning the man who didn't exist. Enough letting their choices dictate my emotional state. It was time to fully, completely rebuild Sarah Miller. And I did. I channeled the anger and hurt into fuel. I poured my energy into my career, taking risks, pitching ambitious projects. I landed a major contract with a national brand, then another. My income tripled. I moved out of the apartment that echoed with ghosts and bought my own condo. A bright, airy space with a balcony overlooking the Greenbelt, far from downtown. I filled it with art I loved, furniture I chose, and plants that thrived under my care. I reconnected with old hobbies, hiking, painting, exploring local music venues. I traveled. I learned to cook gourmet meals just for myself. I invested the money I earned wisely. I rebuilt my confidence, piece by piece. Therapy continued, shifting from crisis management to self-discovery. I learned to set boundaries, to trust my intuition, to value myself independently of any relationship status. I dated occasionally, but cautiously. No more rushing, no more overlooking red flags masked by charm. I was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy in a way I hadn't been even during the good times with Mark. It was a quieter, more resilient happiness, rooted in self-reliance and peace. I had Maya, a strong circle of friends, a fulfilling career, financial independence. My portfolio was now comfortably in the six figures, a fact that gave me quiet satisfaction, and a life I was proud of. Mark Evans became a footnote, and a painful lesson learned, a catalyst for transformation. Then, about 6 months ago, the whispers started again. This time, they weren't about Mark's triumphs. Rumors circulated through former mutual colleagues and friends of friends. Trouble in paradise. Apparently, Jessica Thorne, the ambitious, ruthless woman Mark had chosen, hadn't changed her stripes. The story went that she'd been having an affair for the better part of a year. Not with a colleague this time, but with someone significantly wealthier. Damian Cresswell, a real estate developer known around Austin for his expensive cars and even more expensive divorces. The kicker? Jessica was pregnant, and the baby, timing-wise, was almost certainly Cresswell's. According to the whispers, Jessica hadn't bothered hiding it well towards the end. She'd left Mark abruptly, moving directly into one of Cresswell's luxury downtown condos. Divorce papers were filed swiftly. Mark, I heard, was devastated, blindsided, humiliated. The irony was so thick, so potent, it was almost comical. The man who had preached about soulmates and new beginnings had his own new beginning handed to him on a tarnished silver platter of infidelity and public disgrace. Because they were married when she conceived, depending on the specifics and Texas law, Mark might even have faced initial presumptions of paternity, adding legal insult to emotional injury, requiring DNA tests to formally disprove his responsibility. Friends reported he was a wreck, losing weight, drinking too much, his performance at work suffering. The division of assets in the divorce likely hit him hard too. Jessica, with her sharp instincts and wealthy new partner, probably ensured she got a favorable settlement, perhaps arguing for a significant portion of any marital property accumulated, maybe even temporary spousal support depending on the circumstances and her lawyer's aggression. The house they'd bought, not the modest Zilker one we dreamed of, but a larger, flashier one further out, was being sold. He was apparently living in a small rental, trying to pick up the pieces. I felt a strange mix of emotions hearing all this. There was a flicker of vindication, admittedly. Karma, as they say. But mostly, I felt a profound sense of detachment. His drama felt distant, like watching a messy reality show. It didn't touch the peace I had built. His pain didn't bring me joy, but it certainly didn't cause me sorrow either. It was simply his. The consequence of his own actions, echoing down the years. Then, 2 weeks ago, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I usually ignore unknown numbers, but something made me answer. Sarah? The voice was hesitant, rougher than I remembered, but unmistakably Mark's. My blood ran cold for a second, then settled into a calm, steady rhythm. Yes? It's Mark Evans. As if I could forget. I know who it is, Mark. What do you want? My tone was polite, but cool, detached. He stammered. I know it's been a long time. 5 years. A lot has happened. Yes, it has, I agreed evenly. Look, Sarah, I messed up. Horribly. Back then. With you. I was an idiot. A coward. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. The words sounded rehearsed, desperate. I waited, saying nothing, letting the silence stretch. Things with Jessica. They didn't work out, he said, the understatement almost laughable. Well, you probably heard. I heard some things, I acknowledged, neutrally. It was awful, Sarah, what she did, the lies, the cheating. I finally understand what I put you through. I see it all so clearly now. He sounded genuinely broken. A small, petty part of me noted this with grim satisfaction. That must be difficult for you, I said, my voice devoid of sympathy. He took a shaky breath. Sarah, I've been doing a lot of thinking. About us. About what we had. It was real, wasn't it? Before I ruined everything. I miss you. I miss us. I was wondering, maybe, could we get coffee? Just talk? The request hung in the air. 5 years ago, hearing those words, even hypothetically, might have sent a confusing jolt of hope through me. Now, nothing. Less than nothing. Just a faint sense of distaste, like finding mold on old bread. I took a slow breath, on picturing my beautiful condo, my thriving business, my peaceful weekends, my hard-won contentment. I pictured Mark, alone in his small rental, reaping what he'd sown, and I felt calm, powerful. Mark, I began, my voice steady and clear. I appreciate you acknowledging the past. Perhaps you do understand things now that you didn't before. But my life, the one I've built since you left, it's full. It's happy. It's stable. And it was built entirely without you. But Sarah, he started, desperation creeping in. There's no but, Mark, I interrupted firmly, but without heat. What you did wasn't just a mistake. It was a fundamental betrayal of trust, respect, and basic decency. You didn't just cheat. You dismantled the life we were building. I stole our shared savings and left me to deal with the rubble while you started your new beginning with her. Your current situation, while unfortunate for you, doesn't change any of that. It doesn't erase the past, and it certainly doesn't entitle you to a place in my present or future. I could hear his stunned silence on the other end. Maybe he'd expected tears, anger, or even a reluctant agreement fueled by lingering feelings. He clearly hadn't expected polite, absolute dismissal. So, coffee isn't going to happen? He asked, his voice small. No, Mark, I said, and for the first time, allowed a touch of ice into my tone. It's not. There is absolutely nothing left for us to talk about. The door you walked out of 5 years ago, it's closed. Permanently. I genuinely hope you find a way to sort out your life, but it won't involve me. Please don't contact me again. Before he could respond, I ended the call. I blocked his number immediately. My hand was steady. My heart was calm. Sitting there, in the quiet of my living room, bathed in the afternoon sun streaming through the balcony doors, I didn't feel vengeful in a fiery, destructive way, but I did feel a deep, satisfying sense of closure. The revenge, if you could call it that, wasn't in seeing him miserable, though I couldn't deny a certain ironic justice in it. The true victory, the best revenge, was my own happiness. It was the life I had meticulously, lovingly rebuilt for myself. A life so complete, so vibrant, that there was simply no room, no desire, no need for the man who had once tried to burn it all down. He hadn't just lost me. He had lost the version of me he knew, the one who might have considered taking him back. That Sarah was long gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, and infinitely more content. And that, I thought with a small, private smile, was the most exquisitely fitting ending to his chapter in my story. He could crawl back all he wanted, but the ground he sought was no longer there. I had moved mountains,